7 tiny habits that will completely change your life in 30 days. 2 years ago, Mark was the definition of stuck. He had a job he hated, a body he didn't recognize, and a dream he'd been postponing since college. Every Sunday night, he'd make a promise to himself. This week will be different. And every Friday, he'd look back at another wasted week, feeling more behind than ever. Sound familiar? I'm not going to tell you to wake up at 4 a.m., run a marathon, or overhaul your entire life overnight. What I'm going to tell you is this. The gap between the life you have and the life you want isn't filled by grand gestures. It's filled by tiny, almost invisible daily decisions, stacked, day after day, until one morning you look in the mirror and barely recognize how far you've come. This is Mark's story, and it might just become yours. It wasn't some lightning bolt moment. Mark didn't have a spiritual awakening. He was just bored one Saturday afternoon and wandered into a bookstore to avoid going home to his messy apartment. He picked up a book almost by accident. He read that sentence 3 times. Then he sat down on the bookstore floor and kept reading for 2 hours. Because for the first time, someone wasn't telling him to try harder. They were telling him the truth. The problem wasn't motivation. The problem was his system. Or rather, the complete absence of one. That day, Mark made a different kind of promise. Not, I'm going to change everything. Just, I'm going to change one small thing. And then one more. And then one more after that. What followed was 30 days that rewired his brain, his body, and his identity. And here are the exact 7 habits that did it. Mark's first habit wasn't a workout. It wasn't even a walk. It was putting on his running shoes. That's it. Every day, for the first week, his only rule was shoes on. James Clear calls this showing up. He says the most important thing is to make the habit easy enough that you have no excuse not to start. Because the hardest part of any action isn't sustaining it, it's beginning. And the 2-minute rule tricks your brain into beginning. Tiny action, repeated daily. That's the system. Not motivation, momentum. Mark used to wake up and immediately grab his phone. Within 60 seconds of opening his eyes, he was reacting to news, to notifications, to someone else's agenda. He was handing the first moments of his brain over to the world. The second habit Mark adopted was a morning anchor, a 10-minute non-negotiable sequence before touching his phone. Here's what it looked like. 3 deep breaths, grounding the nervous system. Write 1 sentence in a journal. Today I will. Read 1 page of a book, anything. 10 minutes. That's all. But those 10 minutes told Mark's brain, you are in control of this day. Not your inbox. Not Twitter. You. Day 11, Mark got sick. He skipped everything. Felt like a failure. And then he did something most people never do. He forgave himself on the spot. James Clear's research showed that missing once has almost 0 impact on long-term outcomes. Missing twice starts to rewrite your identity. So Mark made a simple rule. I am allowed to miss 1 day. I am never allowed to miss 2 in a row. This rule removed the perfectionism trap. Perfection is the enemy of progress, because the moment you fail at perfect, you quit entirely. But never miss twice gives you a floor, a minimum viable habit that keeps the identity alive even on your worst days. Most people avoid journaling because they think it means writing 3 pages of deep philosophical prose every night. Mark tried that. He lasted 4 days. So he did something radical. He reduced journaling to its absolute minimum. 1 sentence. Every night, Mark wrote 1 sentence about his day. Sometimes it was, I ran today. I felt alive. Sometimes it was, I ate garbage and watched TV for 4 hours. Tomorrow is different. No judgment, just truth. That 1 sentence did 3 powerful things. It closed the day intentionally. It created a record of his growth. And it made him accountable to himself, not to anyone else. This one was the hardest for Mark. He didn't realize how addicted he was until he tried to stop. The first morning without his phone, he reached for it 14 times in 20 minutes. He counted. Newport's research is clear. Every time you check your phone, you're not just spending time. You're spending cognitive capacity. The brain takes 23 minutes to fully return to deep focus after an interruption. If your morning starts with notifications, you may never reach deep focus at all. Mark moved his phone charger to the kitchen. He bought an $8 alarm clock. He protected his first hour like it was a meeting with the most important person in his life. Because it was a meeting with himself. By week 2, Mark discovered the most powerful behavior design tool he'd ever used. And it didn't come from a guru or a course. It came from the science of how habits actually form. James Clear calls it habit stacking. The formula is brutally simple. After I do X, I will do Y. You're using an existing neural pathway as a launching ramp for a new one. Here's how Mark used it. After I pour my coffee, I do 20 push-ups. After I sit at my desk, I write my one priority for the day. After I brush my teeth at night, I write my one-sentence journal. He didn't need willpower. He didn't need reminders. The old habit triggered the new one, automatically, like dominoes. The final habit isn't something you do. It's something you believe. It's a lens through which you see every single day of your life going forward. James Clear ran the math. 1% better every day for a year equals 37 times better by the end. Not 37% better. 37 times. That's the compound interest of habits. Mark didn't try to be a different person in 30 days. He tried to be 1% better. Every single day. He didn't compare himself to fitness influencers or billionaires. He compared himself to the version of himself from yesterday. And at the end of 30 days, he didn't have a perfect body or $1 million business. But he had something rarer and more powerful. Proof. Proof that he could keep a promise to himself. Proof that the version of him who stayed in bed every morning was not the real Mark. Here's what nobody tells you about habit change. The biggest transformation isn't the one you see in the mirror. It's the one you feel the moment you realize you actually did what you said you were going to do. That you are, for the first time in a long time, someone who keeps his word to himself. Mark didn't become perfect. He became consistent. And consistency, compounded over time, is the closest thing to a superpower that any ordinary human being can access. So here's your challenge. Not to do all 7 habits perfectly starting tomorrow, but to pick just one. The one that resonated most. The one you know, deep down, would change everything if you just started. And do it for 2 minutes today. Just 2 minutes. Because the warrior isn't the person who does the most. The warrior is the person who starts and doesn't stop. 1% at a time. 1 day at a time. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. James Clear, Atomic Habits. If this video hit different, drop a fire in the comments. Subscribe if you're building your 1% every day. And share this with one person who needs to hear this right now.